Hello, and welcome to Cheers. That's one woman's opinion. I am your host, Carolyn Mills. Today we'll be looking at Cheers Season 2, Episode 2, Little Carla Don't Ya. Before we start, a couple things. Um, you may, those of you who are watching this on YouTube, and see the video, um, you may notice that I shaved my head. I did that because a friend of mine has cervical cancer, stage 3, and I did that to show support to her. So that's what that's about. And also, the other thing is, I would like to send out condolences to Charlie Kirk's family in the recent loss. Very tragic, very sad. I actually wasn't even familiar with him until it happened. But doesn't matter. It's just very sad. Doesn't matter what your beliefs are. That just violence is never the answer. So I want to point that out. Um, and it's really hard to transition now, but we're gonna try and we're gonna do our podcast. Oh, also, I forgot one other thing. Um, I'm doing some testing. I did some blood work and whatnot. I've been very exhausted lately, like a lot more than usual. I'm falling asleep, I do dishes and it wipes me out and I take a nap. I take the dogs out and take a nap. I'm just very tired. I'm trying to still continue doing the podcast. I'm hoping I don't need to take a break. But there is a chance I could need to. Hopefully they'll find out soon what it is and they'll be able to take care of it. Um, but I do want to give everybody a heads up on that. So, all right, so let's go ahead and get into the episode. Season 2, episode 2, Little Carla Don't Ya, as I already said. This episode first aired October 13th, 1983. It was directed by James Burrows. It was written by Glenn Charles, Les Charles, James Burrows, and Heidi Perlman, who, as you may remember, she's still alive, is Rhea Perlman's sister. Her younger sister, I believe. I believe she's younger than Rhea. The guest cast: Paul Vaughn as Paul, Paul Wilson as Tom. So Paul Wilson, as most of you probably are familiar with him, he ultimately becomes Paul Creepence later on. He actually has four different roles. Before that three before that happens, and the fourth one is Paul Creepence, because you may remember he played Glenn, which the credits credited him as Greg, but they call him Glenn. That was a weird one. In a season 1 episode. In this episode, he's Paul Wilson. He's always Paul Wilson, that's his name, right? He played Tom, and then I don't remember the character's last name, but before he becomes Paul Crapens, he actually has another last name, which I don't remember at the moment. But we'll see that. And that's, I think, who most people associate with the character Paul. And obviously, Paul's a different character. It's not just they randomly switched. It's not like the two Darrens, same person with a different actor. It's actually two different characters named Paul. But that's who people associate when you say Paul. They're like, oh yeah, that guy. And Jerry Prowl as the customer. Cheers is filmed in front of a live studio audience, is said by John Ratzenberger in this episode. Let's go on to her summary. In the cold open, Diane puts in an order for drinks. Her and Sam flirt over the order, which Carla finds nauseating. And I have to agree with Carla. I've actually said this multiple times. I don't care who it is. Nobody wants to watch two people making out um, in a public place like that. And they weren't making out, but they might have well been the way they were flirting. It was just a little bit too much. Obviously, it was funny for the show, but if that were real life, it would be, yeah. They are about to kiss when Coach puts a paper in between them, telling Sam, "You added these wrong." Sam tells him, "We were gonna kiss." Of course, Coach thinks he's referring to him and Sam, and he says, "Can he finish 3 seats?" He asks if he can finish 3 seats first. Where everybody knows your name plays. So Carla's jumping up and down, jiggling her body, trying to endorse label. Very funny sight gag. I absolutely love that scene, the way she's just jumping up and down. And at this point, if I remember correctly, well, it had to be. The reason Carla was pregnant is because Rhea Perlman had one of her kids with Danny DeVito. They have 5 kids together. I don't remember which one this is. I'm thinking maybe Lucy, but I'm not sure. Um, so that's why she was pregnant. During the hiatus, Rhea had the kid, but Carl still had not. So she's actually wearing a one of the fat suits that make you look pregnant in this scene, which of course we'll see later. Carla says that her last child's labor was triggered by Benny Hill. For you younger people, Benny Hill was a comedian. He did kind of like variety type things. Honestly, I don't know much about him either because he's even before my time. I just know what my parents have told me. I've seen some of his stuff. I don't really find him that funny, but apparently he was a good comedian, just not my style. But Carla says that she laughed so hard that she went into labor. Diane says she'll make funny faces to try to make Carla laugh, and then she'll go into labor. Um, and she starts making the faces, and of course, Shelley Long is phenomenal at the whole facial expression thing. But Carla says to her, I don't think it'll help, but go ahead. Sam asks Carla if she's got someone to cover her when she has the baby. She says her sister's coming. Norm asks if it's No Neck. Carla says no, but then she explains to Diane that everyone in her family has a No Neck, has a nickname because Diane asked her about why she has a sister named No Neck. So she has to explain it's a nickname. And Carla says that her nickname was Muffin, which happens to also be Diane's nickname. Diane says she was called Muffin by her dad because she was so sweet and toasty. Carla says she got the nickname because her brother stuffed yeast in her ears and tried to bake her face. Carla tells them about Annette, who is not like the other family members. She's the good one, shy, and doesn't have many friends. Sam asks when they will meet Annette, and Carla says soon and announces she's been in labor for the last 4 minutes. Sam carries Carla out, and she tries to get more tips, and she lets people know that she's going to be at St. Eligas's hospital. Um, One second. Sorry, my throat was getting dry. I had to get a little bit of water there. Annette is also played by Bria Perlman. She does a dual role in this episode. But not she's never together at the same time. I mean, Bria Perlman's all together. Annette and Carl are never together at the same time, but they are both played by Rhea. So Annette comes into the bar. She introduces herself to Coach as Carla's sister. Annette loves a pony. Coach says, "What an interesting name. How do you pronounce it?" Annette tells him, "Loves a pony." Coach replies, "Gee, just like it sounds." I love this line. There were a lot of good lines in this episode. You can always tell when there's multiple good lines because I randomly actually stick dialogue in the summary along with the Grand Slam and on base line at the end. But this was a great one. Because traditionally you say that when you see it spelled, how's it pronounced? She then meets Sam. Sam introduces her to Norm, Cliff, and Diane. Diane asks Annette if Carla mentioned her. Annette says no, but she mentioned Fish Face. Diane says she quit. I'm trying to keep track of the different names that Carla uses for both Diane and then later on Love, because I'm curious who has the most names that she came up with. I think Diane might be in the lead, but I'm not actually sure. And I'm assuming they probably had about the same amount. I mean, Diane was the star. BB North obviously co-starred, not co-starred. She was a guest star in most of the seasons, even though she was there all the time, pretty much. Once she became, she's like a very much like a Paul regular type guest star, not a one-off or even two-off type thing. But only season 10 was she an active cast member. So I just like to see the names, and a couple of them overlap, like the whole lady thing. So anyway, Cliff thinks Annette is cute. Norm asks him if he's going to ask her out, and Tom points out that Cliff hasn't had a date in months, which I thought this was an interesting line because there's also been references. I don't remember if it's been beforehand, but I think later on you get them where they say that Cliff never has dates. Cliff explains that he has impossibly high standards for a woman, and Norm says, yeah, she has to like you. Poor Cliffy. Sam suggests it would be good for Annette if Cliff asked her out. Paul teases Cliff. Cliff asks Annette out. She says it sounds nice. He tells her he is going on a special assignment. He says he has no right to ask her to wait. She gives him her phone number in case you make it, is what she tells him. And another great scene. Obviously, we all know Cliff is a mailman, and what he sounds like here, special mission, sounds like he's on some like special military tactic operation where he doesn't know if he's coming out alive. But she doesn't know that very well. She would know that because of his uniform, but she plays it cool. Sam asks Diane about Annette. Diane tells him that Cliff's date is the second date she's made since arriving. Annette then makes another date with another man. Diane says Annette is loose. Sam says she's just naive and asks Annette to talk to her in his office. So while they're in the office, Annette asks Sam if she did something wrong. Sam says he wanted to make sure she understood how men in the bar can be with cocktail waitresses. And then Annette starts kissing Sam, pushing him on the couch. Coach opens the door and tells Sam he has a telephone call. He sees Coach with, he sees Sam with Annette and says, I'll just tell them you're breaking in a new waitress. This line seemed weird to me, and I realize Sam is a babe hound and all, but he's obviously never done anything with Carla because Carla has a crush on him and she constantly, well, not constantly, but there's times she tries to have something happen, like in the episode where he says the next woman that comes along and she appears right in front of his face, things like that. So obviously nothing's happened with them. He's kind of oblivious how she even feels most of the time. And then Diane came and they're dating now, of course, but for the entire first season, nothing happened. I mean, they did have the kiss in the pool room, where she flips him. So I mean, there's things, but the breaking in didn't make sense because despite Sam's reputation with women, you haven't seen anything with waitresses. And granted, these are the only two waitresses you see at this point. But I thought that line was interesting. Coach sets up a movie screen. Another random thing. I'm trying to figure out did Coach bring in a movie screen, or does Sam randomly have a movie screen like in the back room or something? Just random movie screen appeared in a bar. It would have been nice to actually see him get it. Norm gets off the phone with Cliff. He says that Cliff smashed up his leg in an accident, but will be by later. Annette comes in, and Sam tells her that she is late again, which also tells us some time had to have passed. It's not just like the next day, because she said she's late again, and she just started. Sorry. As I was saying about the tiredness. Um, Carla, well, this is 1983. I was born in 80, so I don't have a whole lot of frame of reference for how long women are in the hospital back then. But I know today women are almost in and out. It's like they drop the kid out, the kid comes out, and they kick you out of the hospital. Not quite that fast, but you get the idea. I'm assuming back then it was a little longer. I know when my sister was born in the 60s, she was under 5 pounds, but she had to stay until she hit the 5 pound mark, and mom refused to leave without her, so she stayed too. But I do know back then, 60s, when my older sister was born. I'm the youngest of eight. I think I've mentioned that. There's a 20-year gap between my oldest brother and me. So in the 60s, you stayed a lot longer, and it decreased. I don't know what it was in the 80s, but obviously she's been there a few days. So, Annette asks Sam if he wants to take her into the office and scold her. Sam tells her just don't do it again. Diane thinks that they should tell Carla. I was thinking about this. I wonder if at any point does Carla ever find out what Annette is like? I mean, it's not in the episode, so it didn't happen there, but like post episode, because obviously things happen that we don't see in between time. It's not like the bar freezes for just as in our world. So I'm curious, does she know what Annette's like? But as far as I know, I don't think Annette's ever mentioned again, unless it's like maybe in passing, like, yeah, I have the sister, but they never really talk about her. But random thought. Coach shows the video he took on his trip to the hospital to see Carla's new 2 day old baby, which is also the name of his movie, which I found very funny as well. That this big long title is actually exactly what the movie is. He went to the hospital to see the 2 day old baby. 2 day old baby. The only baby shot, however, is in the nursery, and then there's all these other babies. So it's hard to tell which one is hers. Annette says she's glad she got to see the baby, meaning on the movie. And she explains she went to the hospital but met the chief surgeon in the parking lot and they split a six-pack, so she never got inside to see Carl and the baby. Cliff comes in and they welcome him back. They ask him about his leg. And as they're talking, Sam says that Cliff sounds like he's been bitten by the love bug. Diane asks if it's Annette that he's in love with. He says he is and plans to ask Annette to marry her. Diane gets Sam, Norm, and Coach to go to the pool room to discuss Cliff and Annette. Norm asks if anyone can change her. Cliff can. And Diane says maybe she really does love Cliff. Then they go back to the bar room. Diane tells Annette, Cliff is really something special, huh? Annette doesn't know which one Cliff is. So Diane returns to the others, and Norm says Cliff is his best friend, so he'll tell him. And once again, you see here with Norm, his loyalty to the people he cares about, his friends, his best friend, who he teases probably as much as anybody else. But when push comes to shove, he does not want his friend hurt. And he wants to be the one that delivers the news that's going to hurt him so that he can protect him as best as he can. Norm asks to speak with Cliff in the back room. Norm asks Cliff how would he define friendship, and then he tells him that a friend is a friend. Tells him that a friend remembers all the good times they share. He reminds Cliff of the time that Cliff told him he drank too much and needed to stop. He tells Cliff he appreciated it, but Cliff points out Norm didn't stop. Norm explains, that's because I decided you were wrong. And another great line there that we see that they talk about deeper stuff than you often see in the bar, where they discuss things like who's better, the Addams family or who's the people that go there, Munsters. Later episode, but you get the idea. So you see that they do have deeper conversations, not always shown. There are things sometimes that there are, like us, we're going to see it here. So Cliff asks what Norm wants. Norm explains he came to warn Cliff about Annette, who is not as innocent as Cliff thinks. Norm accuses Norm of being. Oh, typo. Cliff accuses Norm of being jealous. When Norm does not take it back, Cliff knows that Norm is not lying. Cliff is angry, not at Norm, not even at Annette. He's angry with himself, but he thanks Norm for telling him. Cliff doesn't want to face the others, and Norm says anyone who laughs at you will have to answer to me. Cliff calls Norm the best friend he ever had, and Norm says the same about Cliff, but they decide not to hug because there was a time when guys could not hug men. Sorry, guys could not hug other guys. It was considered you just didn't do it. And apparently they're in that stage right now. Some men never get over it. And I love the ending here with Cliff and Norm in the back room when they talk. I think it's very a poignant scene. Like I said, Norm shows his loyalty. We see Cliff's vulnerability, and it's just really well done. So I gave this episode 4 out of 5 beer nuts. Real Perlman did an amazing job as Annette, and it's nice to see the gang looking after Cliff. For the MVP, I gave it to Real Perlman. There's a few people I thought about. I actually thought at one point about George Wendt, thought about John Ratzenberger, but ultimately I had to go with Rhea Perlman because she played 2 different roles. Um, and Annette is kind of different for her. I mean, Carla's kind of trampy too, but even the look, I mean, she didn't have the as Wolf once called it, Brillo head. The perm that she always has. It was straighter. It was very different, and it was nice to see that quieter, demure because Annette's a lot quieter, even though she's just as trampy. She's quieter, more demure, and it was nice to see that because even in different roles I've seen Rhea in, she always has the same hairstyle. Nothing really changes, and she's good in everything she does. Like to Grandmother's House. I saw her in what's the movie with the Ronald doll? Starts with an M. Drawing a blank. It's one of my favorite movies. Why am I drawing a blank? Okay, well, I'll think of it eventually. And for best dressed, I'm gonna look it up. For best dressed, I gave it to Diane Chambers. I actually really liked the first outfit she had on. Mara Wilson. Matilda. Matilda was the movie she was in with her husband and Mara Wilson. Thank God for the phone that has internet. It's very frustrating when I can't think of something that I know. So the Grand Slam line, I forgot if I changed it from last time, but I've decided to make with the baseball theme that I had for other things here. I have the Grand Slam line because for those of you who are not familiar with baseball, a Grand Slam is when you hit the ball and the bases are loaded and you hit a home run. It's a Grand Slam. Everybody comes in, you get 4 runs instead of one. And then the runner-up line is now called the on-base line, which basically means it's a single. You hit the ball and you got on base, or you could have been walking and got on base. But either way, you got on first base. So anyway, the Grand Slam line. Cliff says, "What are you saying this for, Norm? Because you're jealous or something? Because Annette and I are starting a new life together, and all the magic's gone out of your relationship?" Norm replies, "More people have enjoyed Annette's magic than Doug Henning's." And if you're confused about the relationship part, um, not Cliff, Norm and Vera are currently separated. That's the whole magic going out. And our on baseline, Cliff to Paul. "If I wasn't wearing this uniform, I'd ask you to step outside." Norm says, "If you weren't wearing that uniform, we'd all step outside." Here's a little known fact. Carla says she's having her baby at St. Eligius's Hospital, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. This is the hospital that was on St. Elsewhere. St. Elsewhere was apparently a derogatory term. I will see it eventually. And you may remember last season, I did an interview with Miss Bonnie Bartlett. And she also had the questions for Mr. William Daniels, who she's married to, and they were both on St. Elsewhere. So we have that connection. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, follow. And of course, you can join our Facebook group. Cheers, that's one woman's opinion. And you can follow us on Instagram at Cheers One Woman's Opinion Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter, also known as X, at One Woman's Opinion. And always, you can feel free to email with any questions, comments, etc. at Cheers One Woman's Opinion Podcast at gmail.com. The next episode is season 2, episode 3, Personal Business, and that's One Woman's Opinion.